let's sublimate some tumblers. Sublimating tumblers is easy and fun. There are so many options that let your imagination soar. It's also a lot less boring than laser engraving powder-coated tumblers since you can use full color designs. HTVRONT sent me their brand new A200 automatic tumbler press. This is their latest iteration on tumbler presses. They have sent me one in the past, but that one was capable of doing mugs, or tumblers with handles. This one was designed specifically for tumblers that have a uniform shape like this 22-ounce skinny tumbler, or tumblers with handles that you can remove. In other words, if you have something like this, you probably shouldn't do it in this machine. You still want the old machine for that one. The thing that makes the A200 stand out is its swappable inserts. By default, it comes with one that can handle your skinny tumblers or your glass tumblers. But there's also a new insert created just for those really cool Stanley-esque 40-ounce tumblers. And of course you might be thinking, well, okay, you said no handles, so just buy tumblers where you can remove the handles. Before I launch into showing off how the machine works, I'm gonna go through some of the items that you need for sublimation because I don't like to assume that everybody knows what's going on. If you know what's going on, good for you. Fast forward. Okay, first thing. You need a sublimation printer with sublimation paper. You can't use your inkjet printer. Sublimation requires very specific kinds of inks and papers. You also need special blanks that are coded for sublimation. You can't just put sublimation paper on things, heat press it, and hope that it sticks. They have to be specially treated to accept the dye. You need a tape measurer, like this one. Okay, maybe not like this one. This one's cheap, but whatever. You're also going to need some heat tape. This is so you can tape the design down to your blank before pressing it. And it has to be a specialized heat tape, otherwise it'll melt. And we don't want that. You need scissors, specifically scissors that are meant for paper, not your sewing scissors. And safety gloves! These actually come with the machine, so you don't have to go buy anything special. Also, a tumbler cradle. It looks weird, but it's really helpful when trying to make sure you get a really nice tight fit for the print to your blank. Again, that's more of a nice to have. It's not required. You'll also want some alcohol wipes. Alcohol wipes are great to have around for cleaning the surface of your blanks so that you get all the oil off of them. That makes for a cleaner transfer. Now, as far as printing your designs go, you're gonna need that sublimation printer like I mentioned earlier. And because I actually don't have the same kind of prowess with my memory as I did when I was 20-something, I'm always looking this info up, so I figured I'd put it in the video so I can go remember it from looking at my own video, which, funny enough, is the only reason I started a YouTube channel, so I could put stuff up and remember how to do it. Also, I like attention. I'm using an Epson F170, but these steps are pretty typical for any sublimation printer. If you're using Photoshop like me, make sure that the color handling is set to Photoshop Manages Colors. I've gotten some very weird brownish tints to my prints if I don't do this while printing directly from Photoshop. Make sure you have the correct color profile selected. Most printer manufacturers are going to install these with your drivers. I don't need to mirror the print as my Epson handles this for me, but check with your printer's manual to see if yours does the same. The prints themselves are going to come out looking very faded and not terribly rich with color. That's actually okay. The ink is heat activated, and it's going to look a lot more saturated once it's transferred to your blank. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make one of my violin teachers a glass tumbler. I'm just going to take one of these alcohol wipes and just go around the surface of where I'm going to put this design. Well, I might as well just go all the way around now that I'm here. But this helps get all of the dirt and grease and any kind of residue that was left over from being factory packaged. Okay, once I'm done wiping that down, I basically just let it dry. And then I'm going to take my design, careful to not put my fingers on any of the ink areas, and set it on top, like so. All right, I'm gonna make sure that it is at least somewhat straight, so it's not crooked or anything like that. And then I'm gonna take my heat tape, just a little bit of it, to secure it in place, like so. Right? Just to make sure it doesn't go flying around on me. And then I'll place another one up top like that. Now I need to wrap it with gusto. You don't want the design on top of it to be really loosey-goosey like this. Even if you're gonna wrap it with butcher's paper or eventually with the silicone pad that comes with the machine, you want to make sure it's really secure and tight against the surface. That's important because when this starts to clamp shut and to apply the pressure to the object in question, it could shift the design and then it's gonna look all blurry. Like that, see? I was really stupid and I didn't tape it down right there. So basically it wasn't close enough to the surface and it was loose enough to shift around. That's user error, not machine error, by the way. All right, so what I'm gonna do is liberally apply as much of the tape as possible, and I go from the center out and I just smooth everything down to that side while I am placing the tape. And this ensures that I am taking the bulk of the paper and moving it away from the center, and it starts to lay flat. Here's a close-up of another tumbler I did so you can see just how thoroughly I taped those edges. Okay, now I've got this completely prepped. So what I need to do is get the machine going. The buttons on the left side of the display are used to select the 3 types of settings: heat, temperature, and pressure. We'll set the heat to 390 degrees Fahrenheit. The time is set in seconds. Let's use 250 seconds for the glass tumbler. The final setting, which is new with the A200, is pressure. You need to be careful and follow the manufacturer's guidelines on pressure. For these glass tumblers, we'll use 100 pounds. Okay, I let it heat up and it beeped at me, so we're ready to go. Make sure you put on the heat gloves. You really don't want to get burned by this thing. Now, I mentioned earlier that the machine came with 2 silicone pads. There's a larger one and a smaller one that's flopping over. You want to use the smaller one with the glass tumblers and the 22-ounce tumblers. The reason for that is really simple. When you go and wrap up your object, you don't want these ends to have any chance of overlapping. See, the inside here is gonna kind of shrink down and clamp onto this and apply that 100 pounds of pressure. And while it does that, it's gonna kind of slide this in. If it overlaps, then there will be a section of your tumbler that isn't going to get the correct amount of pressure, so the design won't transfer evenly. I found this out the hard way. So you want to take your object and wrap it in here, and you don't want this open seam to be at the top. It's actually best to just take it and slide it so that it is kind of like on the side or at the bottom. But I just go ahead and kind of slip this in here so that that seam is on the side, and you can kind of just, you know, stick it in there. Again, that's why you have the heat gloves. Once you have it in place, all you have to do is press the R button on top. And there it goes. And it's doing the thing. So we're just gonna let it sit there for 243 seconds. A few moments later. Okay, it's done. So I'm gonna go ahead and put these gloves back on. And here's the thing, I'm just gonna poke in here and remove it. And instead of setting it on top of the table, because I have a cutting mat here, cutting mats are really susceptible to heat. That's why I have this thing sitting on top of a big silicone pad that I use in my other heat press here. This is really hot. Okay, I just set it on the ground like that, and I let it cool off for about 10 minutes before I do anything else with it. So while that's cooling off, let's set up another tumbler. Actually, before I do anything else, I'm gonna take this and move it so that I don't run the risk of stepping on it, because socks and shoes are prisons for feet. Also, I'm accident prone. Okay, let's try one of these skinny tumblers. Now, I've already made a couple of these, but you can never have too many. We'll use the same settings as before, except that we'll only press for 190 seconds instead of 250. Okay, see ya in 189 seconds. I'm not patient. I mean, it's only like 190 seconds. What's there to be patient over, right? ADHD is a hell of a drug. I might have hit record a little too early. Guess I could work on my posture. Oh. Yay, there it goes. Okay, now I'll just poke it out on that side. Come on, you can do it. Awesome. Okay, now again, this is gonna be really hot. Oh, good Lord, it's steaming. Okay, so since it's super hot, gonna set off to the side. Now let's try one of the 40-ounce tumblers by swapping out the insert. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do is unplug everything. So we're gonna turn the machine off, and then I'm going to unplug it. You need to let it cool down before you swap anything out. This isn't a tumbler that's coming out of here, it's a large metal chassis that is basically being heated up. And since it's sitting at a good old 390 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm just gonna let it sit there and simmer for a bit. So while that is cooling down, why don't we go ahead and open up the 40-ounce kit. So this is a separate purchase. You can get a bundle per their website that would include it. So it depends on how often you see yourself doing 40-ounce tumblers. Okay, so it came with a tumbler, which is awesome because I don't have a whole lot of sublimation blanks for 40-ounce tumblers. So I'll go ahead, we're gonna get this out of here. Oh, it's heavy. What is heavy? Oh my goodness. Strong like bull in Russia. If you just gently pull this out, you grab that and you'll see that it has its own silicone mat. Now that's important because you need to make sure that it's going to get a nice even press all the way around with a tumbler that's like this. As you see here, the bottom is thinner than the top half, and there's this really cool slope. But you see the prongs here? That's where the handle attaches. Just to be safe, I'm gonna put on the heat gloves before taking this thing out. To release the current insert, pull on the orange tab, then slide the insert out of the machine. You'll see steel rails along the top of the inner tube. The inserts have complementary rails that slide into the ones on the machine. You may need to wiggle either side a little bit to line them up. Then all you do is slide it all the way in until you hear a click. Great, now that we have that in place, we can go ahead and start heating it up again. I'm gonna use the exact same settings that I used for the 22-ounce skinny tumbler. 390 degrees Fahrenheit, 195 second press with 100 pounds of pressure. I'm gonna come in on this side and insert this, and again, make sure that the prongs and the silicone opening are facing up. So I'll go ahead and get that in place. And you want to push all the way back until you feel it stop. And then we press R and let it do its thing for 195 seconds. All done. I go ahead and take it out from the right-hand side, preferably with the silicone mat. You do not want to leave the silicone mat in there, by the way. Okay, now I'm gonna try a different brand of sublimation tumbler. That's because I wanna see if they will work in the HTVRONT attachment even if they aren't HTVRONT branded. The one that I have here has a slightly longer slope. It might not line up correctly, so let's give it a shot. You will see. Spoiler alert, it turned out just fine. Unless the tumbler has a drastically different shape than the HTVRONT branded ones, I don't foresee this being a problem. Everything's cooled down, so now's the moment of truth. We can start peeling off all of these designs and see how the final results look. And here's everything. They pressed so cleanly. I have to admit that I'm not a sublimation expert, so I'm really happy to see these results. I don't see any ghosting from uneven pressure or slipping, though really those two things would be the fault of the user. Remember, you have to firmly place and tape down your designs for the best results. Even the text is sharp down to the smallest font. And of course, the colors are saturated, popping from the surface, and give the tumbler so much more personality than a laser engraved tumbler ever would. If you want to learn more about the A200 by HTVRONT, I will leave a link in the description of the video below. Also, feel free to ask a question in the comment section below the video. Thank you so much for your undivided attention. Please feel free to like the video and subscribe to the channel, because God knows I need more attention and adoration from random strangers on the internet.